Alright, so this here is going to be about two things. One is how to cut a piece of column. So this is a piece of column here. One's how to cut it, and then how to put it in one of these unions. So inside our GC, we have in the oven here's the entrance where the injection takes place, and then that goes into a guard column, which is a thick column, and it's not functionalized on the inside, and the idea is that any dirt or stuff will stay in the guard column. Then there's a connector. That's one of these here, and that connects the guard column to the real column, which is long and narrow, and that goes around and around and around and around, and then off to the detector. And when you want, sometimes, especially in the mass spectrometer, there's leaks at the junction of the guard column and the connector, and at the junction of the true column and the connector. And if that's leaking, it needs to be fixed. And usually what needs to happen is the column needs to be cut here and then connected to a new union and a guard column, sometimes a new guard column or maybe the same one, depending. But anyway, it needs to be first cut and then put into the union, or united, and then the guard column needs to be connected back to the inlet. And so then it needs to be connected back to the inlet, or really it's guard column to the inlet. And so right now we're going to do these two things, and then we'll have a look at this third one. So to cut the column is really simple. We use this white sort of, it's a little, I'm not really sure what it is, but it's an instrument that's used for scoring the column, and then it can be broken. And the way I use it is I hold the column against my finger, and then I take this little instrument and I drag it gently across the column, and it has this kind of feeling, and if you look really close you'll see that there's a score, it's called a score, right on the side of the column. And now if I press on this, it will break off right where I had slid this little I don't know what this is called, this little thing. And so we can practice this. You just drag it across and then break it off like that, and that can be done a bunch of times. And then one thing is that if you hold this little thing behind the column, you can really see what the column looks like right where it's being cut. And what we want is something that's a smooth cut. So we want the end of the column, if it's really magnified, we want it to look like that. We don't want it to look like that or something where it's all sort of like the end is all sort of broken off. It needs to be smooth. This will create the most airtight seal when it's in the connector and when it's up here in the inlet. So it needs to be like this. And the best way to get that, again, is to put it against your finger, slide this thing, and then break it off like that. And then inspect and see if you've achieved what your goal is. Okay, so that's cutting the column. And that's how you do it for the guard column, which is what this is, and for the true column, which is a little bit thinner than this and a little bit more fragile. Now what we're going to work on is this part here, uniting the guard column with the true column. And just as an example, I'm just going to unite the guard column with itself, basically, or two pieces of guard column together. So we're just going to pretend that this is the true column. This is the one on the diagram that's here. It's going around, it's very long, and then eventually the detector. And here's the guard column, and it's coming down from the injector. And we need to put these two together, and to do that we're going to use one of these glass unions. And the way this works is it's pretty straightforward. When I do this, I think there's a couple ways to do it. The idea is that you use some of this methanol to lubricate the true columns so that they stick nicely inside the union here. Wow, I can't do that. they need to, if you stick them in here, they go in nicely, but if you lubricate them with a little bit of methanol and press real hard, then they get really nice and stuck in there. And so usually what I do is I just dip the union in the methanol. Now you can see this is a bunch of methanol in there. I take one of the columns and I stick it into one end of the union, and then I hold on the union and hold on the column, and I press pretty hard. And I also kind of rotate a little bit this end of the column. So you see this rotating motion here. I rotate it to try and, while pushing in, to try and really get that guard column nice and snug up in the union. And when it's done right, I don't know if you'll be able to see it now. You may have to put it in the oven to really see it. But when it's done right, you can see there's a thin, dark gray line all around the side where the guard column is connected snugly with the union. I don't know if it's visible here right now, but you can, whenever you make a union like that, you can look and see if that dark line is present. And then the same is for the other side. When you're trying to put the other side in, then you'd take, if this was your real column, you'd take it, dip it in a bit of methanol, and then put it in the other side, and use the same, this rotating motion like this while pushing to unite it. And now these two are united together, and that's done. Usually then we would heat the oven a little bit to evaporate this methanol and push it through the column with some of the gas mobile phase. Okay, now let's move on to talking about connecting the guard column to the inlet.